My name is Mick. Very pleased to meet you. Welcome to the channel. I started this channel in July of 2018. I started this channel specifically to talk about my passion and fandom for the dceu. Because I wanted to put my opinions out there. Because ever since the release of Man of Steel, in that short time, a lot of people were saying a lot of shit, and I wanted to readdress the balance, which I believe that I have. Ever since this channel has existed, there has always been a dceu. On December the 22nd, I think it's December the 22nd, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom will be released, and then the DC Extended Universe will be over. I never thought that moment would ever come. I never thought I'd see the ending in my lifetime of the dceu. That's somewhat naive. Everything ends in the end. I thought as long as there's an MCU, there'd always be a dceu. I know the multitude of problems in the construction of the dceu, and it was never really a franchise that worked in any way, shape or form. But I love talking about the dceu. I've always loved talking about the dceu. It's why I started this channel. It was so exciting because there were so many fans with so many different opinions. When Man of Steel was released, a lot of us were hyped and excited. Some people were angry, but we could have some constructive conversations. Then the big thing happened. Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice was released, and we had this polarizing atmosphere. And that's when I started to think I needed to speak out. I did a video on a separate channel at the time talking about BVS, defending BVS. It got a lot of views, more views than this channel, any specific video on this channel has ever got. Don't know where that video is now. I'm sure it's out there somewhere if you want to look for it. So that's why I started my channel. And today I just want to talk about my dceu fandom and my memories of the dceu before it ends, because I think it's very, very sad that it's ending prematurely. Let's not forget, Adby and DeLuca wanted to continue the DC Extended Universe. James Gunn wants to put his personality around DC Universe. That's part of James's ego, and there's nothing we can do about it. On December the 22nd, we are having a funeral for the dceu. And as I say, this makes me extremely sad. The excitement of Man of Steel, then the polarization of BVS, an amazing artistic comic book movie. Even the build-up to the first Suicide Squad was great. Wonder Woman was a great movie. But then one of the most heinous, hideous moments in modern, recent Hollywood history, the release of Justice League and the environment around it. We heard that Zack Snyder was stepping down. We heard his good friend Joss Whedon was taking over. Yes, breaking news, they were never good friends. It was all a lie. For some reason at the time, Zack kind of didn't come out and say anything. He wanted to give them the opportunity to release the movie and hope it could be a success without him. But it wasn't a success, it was a fucking disaster. And as I say, one of the most polarizing, ridiculous moments in Hollywood history. Because the film is a recycling, it's an embarrassment, and there's no defending this film, even if there's moments in this film that you really, really like the tease of the Flash Superman race, which is an iconic moment in comics. I enjoyed that too. But the film was problematic because it wasn't a film. It's basically like getting a jigsaw and putting different pieces in the wrong places. That's what Justice League was. From that moment, it was disastrous for DC fans and the dceu. Even though a really good film in the first Aquaman made over $1 billion, surprising the Hollywood community, surprising fans, and even surprising its lead cast member, Jason Momoa. But after that, we had the entrance of Water Hamada, and it became a cheap, underfunded franchise that didn't make any sense anymore. In terms of Shazam, in terms of Birds of Prey, in terms of Wonder Woman 84. In watching Wonder Woman 84, I said to myself, the person who directed the first film couldn't have written and directed this film. And I think I'm right, because Zack Snyder constructed the first Wonder Woman, not Patty Jenkins. Patty Jenkins showed with Wonder Woman 84 that she's not a very good storyteller or a very good filmmaker. And it kept on going, from bad to worse. But the Black Adam film is a film I always say I really enjoyed. But in yesterday's video we spoke about why the Black Adam movie should never have existed. And why Black Adam and Shazam should have lived in the same worlds, in the same movies. Big mistake. But when you start listening to actors rather than your own gut feelings as studio executives and directors and writers, you give yourself a huge problem. There's a lot of ego on a movie set, and once you start listening too much to that ego, you have a big problem. But this is going to go down as the most calamitous, unique franchise in Hollywood history. And I have so many memories, because then after Justice League we had this whole release, the Snyder Cut, rumours and innuendos about there being a Snyder Cut. I always knew, you always knew, that Zack Snyder had filmed his own Justice League movie. We saw the rap party in London with the music, with all the cast celebrating, the jokey moments and all of that. We know that Zack Snyder shot his own movie at the time. Now, there was a denial that it didn't exist. A finished edited cut of that movie didn't exist at that point. That's why AT&T, aka John Stankey, put his own hands in his own pocket and gave Zack 70 million to finish that movie. But he'd shot his own Justice League movie. Let's be clear about that. From that moment therein, Zack Snyder was on Vero, another social media platform that he went on because he couldn't really be on Twitter that much because of the abuse that he was getting. It had reached fever pitch. It was ridiculous. No one, and I mean no one, the worst murderer, the worst anyone, deserved the stuff that Zack Snyder was getting. He was public enemy number one. But his fans started listening to him. He wanted to release the Snyder Cut, and so did we. And my channel became this place to help release the Snyder Cut in any small way. And I had good views at the time, much better views and interactions than I get today. My channel is a graveyard. It's absolutely dead these days. But back in the peak of Release the Snyder Cut, it was very exciting to bring you videos. It still is, by the way. It still is, but it's just not the same bacon, the same gravy anymore. So they were great memories, and we fought and we fought. We had our good days, we had our victories, we had our losses. It was amazing. Even more amazing was the moment where Zack Snyder announced that we were finally going to see the Snyder Cut. And we was not disappointed, and we were hoping for more. We were hoping this was the beginning. I believe AT&T wanted to restore the Snyderverse, and I think they wanted to restore it on HBO Max. But it never happened, and that's why from being a chapterized event, the Snyder Cut became one movie. I'm glad it did. But I think they wanted to have a Justice League kind of streaming series in the form of what Zack was planning within his free Justice League movies. Unfortunately, it never happened because you had the element of WB Pictures who were against Zack. And slowly but surely, Zack came out and told us that they didn't like him, that there was big issues. Even during him trying to put together the Snyder Cut, they wanted his Green Lantern, his John Stewart, cut out. Zack Snyder nearly quit from the process of putting together the Snyder Cut. It was us, the fans, that kept him there. Otherwise, he would have quit. Thank the gods that he didn't. Zack Snyder has made a Rebel Moon movie based on his Star Wars pitch. We're going to see that later on this year, and I'm very excited to see that. The DCEU isn't just another MCU. It's not just another franchise. It has great memories. I've met so many unique, outstanding DC fans via this journey. And to think that it's going to be over with the release of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is a very, very sad realization to me. Because I think there's some very, very good movies in this franchise. And even though so many mistakes were put together, the DCEU was founded by Christopher Nolan, David Goyer, Charles Roven, and Zack Snyder. And I believe their intentions were honourable. No question about that. They wanted to give us a unique DC extended universe. But we are not in the era where people want to see fresh takes and uniqueness. It's not lost on me. The irony is not lost on me when I was watching South Park, Into the Pandaverse. And everyone was making YouTube videos. Oh yeah, you know, Matt and Trey, South Park have destroyed Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm. Or the other side saying that Matt and Trey have destroyed fans. No, that's not what the intention was. Nobody won, neither side won from that episode of South Park. What Matt and Trey were saying there is that, you know, stop pandering to fans when you're making stuff. Stop pandering to different demographics when you're making stuff. Make stuff with your own gut feelings and your imagination. The reason Kathleen Kennedy has become such a kind of punching bag for all sides is because she was pandering to everyone. It's a bit like Atticus Finch in To Kill the Mockingbird. One moment he's a hero, then he's everybody's mortal enemy, because when you're trying to please all sides, it always ends in tears. But if you just work on making the best Star Wars, the best DC that you can do, from your gut feeling, from your imagination, then I think you have a win. That's the problem of today. There is too much pandering. And that is what Matt and Trey from South Park were trying to say. But what's interesting about, the beginning of the DCEU and the Snyderverse, there was no pandering. Zack Snyder knew what he wanted to do. The last thing he wanted to do was pander to hardcore DC fans. He wanted to do his own thing because the man is an auteur. And that's what he did, and that's why he got into trouble. Because fans today are used to being pandered to. It was the belief, but the MCU, Kevin Feige gives the fans what they want. Nobody asked for a Marvel Cinematic Universe, but they got it. Nobody asked for a South Park, but they got it. And South Park and The Simpsons are now part of our pop culture. The MCU is now part of our pop culture. People loved it. Some still do. But it's not the peak thing, the peak IP franchise that it used to be. Because everything has its time. But the truth of the matter is, the DCEU never had its time. It never peaked. I think it peaked creatively under Zack Snyder, and his plans were very, very exciting. And we'll never see, unless we get some amazing miracle, of the resolution of that plan. And now we're in the throes of the James Gunn DC universe, and we'll see in the next couple of years if what he does is successful or not. Another unique, interesting situation. But let's stick to the matter at hand, which is the DCEU. I know you lot, the loyal 5 or 6 people who come in, right? Please smash a like on the video. You've enjoyed the DCEU. You've enjoyed Man of Steel. You've enjoyed Batman vs. Superman. And it's very sad that this is coming to an end. This will be a realization when Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is released. That it's over. That it's done. That there's no more DC Extended Universe. It's an exorcism on December the 22nd. Even though Zack Snyder has nothing to do with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, he'll probably have an executive producer credit along with his good wife, Deb Snyder. But he had nothing to do in the making of that film. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is totally the beast of James Wan. And I think if you do support it, you will like it. But that's up to you. We've had some amazing directors making DCEU films. We've seen some amazing, unique CBMs. Now, personally, I think we've seen some of the best CBMs of all time within the DC Extended Universe. In Man of Steel, in Batman vs. Superman, in Wonder Woman, in Zack Snyder's Justice League, and even Aquaman to a point. Amazing films, and Black Adam was a lot of fun to watch. A lot of time and investment was put in to that movie. So there's some good memories from the DCEU. But the DCEU, regrettably, was a beast of many ideas and many creatives. And even when Snyder was involved, there was too much interference, too many, studio execs interfering. Too many cooks spoil the broth. I think I said that in yesterday's video as well. And this was the problem. Kevin Feige is in charge of the MCU. And when it was at its peak and it worked, he was in total control. I don't think he's as much in control since phase 4 and 5 as he was in phases 1 to 3. I think Disney have been interfering, and I think that's where the real problem has come in, and that's why the MCU has destabilized since phase 4. And Disney's insistence in, pandering, as we were talking about earlier, pandering to the LGBTQ community, to people of color. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, by the way. Representation matters. We live in a world full of black, Asian, gay, trans people. That's the reality, whether you like that or not. I do like that we live in a weird, wonderful world of so many cultures, so many genders. This should be a thing that doesn't trigger you, it should inspire you. It certainly inspires me. As I talk to you right now, I'm developing 2 trans stories. Just quickly, because this is nothing to do with DC, I'm writing one of a journey of a young trans girl, and we see her journey from the very beginning. The realization of finding out she's in the wrong body, or at the time, he is in the wrong body. And we see the journey of the realization and then doing something about that realization and the reaction from the world to becoming something else. And then the sequel to that story will be about a straight alpha male who falls in love with a trans girl. Those are the 2 stories I'm working on. I'm always working on different stories for my theatre, which is what I write for, perform for, with my amateur dramatic society. And, people will say, that's pandering, isn't it, Mick? No, it's not. I come from the 70s. I don't know what it's like to be trans. I don't know, and I will never totally understand because I've never been or will be in that situation. But I think unless we do, I think stories and acting are so important. And instead of pointing fingers at each other, I think if we can just, try and understand at the very least, we'll never totally know what it feels like to be different people. You don't know what it's like to be me, and, I don't know what it's like to be you. And that's going to be the case forever. But we must try. And I think in stories and performance and art, we can have a more peaceful world. Because it's no good at this moment in time. Because everyone's on the tightrope pulling in different directions. And nobody wins a tug of war. One group pull that way, one group pull the other way. Then there's the other people pulling left and right. It never works, people. We live in a very troublesome world because everybody seems to hate somebody. And that's a shame. And that's what happened with the DCEU. We got Snyder fans calling out real DC fans. We got real DC fans calling Snyder fans fake DC fans. And it's rinse and repeat. And I don't know about you, but I'm fed up of it. And it's what's caused the death of the DCEU. We have mass boycotts for DC now. We don't even know how many people will go and embrace James Gunn's Superman legacy. Who knows? It's a Superman film, so I'm very excited and interested to see what James does with that movie. Because ultimately, as gutted as I am of the ending of the DCEU, I'm still a Superman fan. I'm still a DC fan. So I want James Gunn to succeed. Now, a lot of Snyder fans, unlike me, don't want James Gunn to succeed, and they're trying to expose historical tweets and Facebook posts, and all that is boring. That doesn't interest me. If you're looking for a perfect angel to run DC, if you're looking for actors to behave perfectly, you are in the wrong planet. Everybody is flawed. Everyone does bad and good shit. And until you people understand that, because all you have to do is look in the fucking mirror. You're no more perfect than any famous person walking on a red carpet. We all need to accept that we're all fucking flawed, and instead of looking down our noses at each other, and maybe the world will be a more peaceful, loving place. It's been my absolute honour to bring you videos about the DCEU every day. It's one of the things that gets me up in the morning. I get up in the morning. I never once wake up depressed. I'm going to do a video about DC today. Oh my God, James Gunn said this, Zack Snyder said that. I've got to tell everyone. I've got to go on YouTube. It's always been exciting for me. And I will continue to talk about DC Universe. And sometimes we'll talk about the old DCEU. I think we'll have a video section sometimes called DCEU Memories. I think that would be fun for all the DCEU fans, because there's so many DCEU fans out there who loved Snyder's idea. An idea that was supported by Charles S. Roven, Christopher Nolan, Goya, and a lot of other different people. And unfortunately, it didn't work. It went wrong. But if you love Man of Steel and BVS and Zack Snyder's Justice League, they're going to be there for you to treasure for the rest of your life. And I think that's the important thing here. Instead of trying to stir shit and cause trouble, love what you love. You don't love James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, you don't have to watch it. But shitting on it every day and calling him a bad director isn't true. James Gunn isn't a bad director, whether you're a Snyder fan or not. He isn't. He's a good director. He isn't the director that he thinks he is. And I mean, just changing the subject again, Joe Russo going after Martin Scorsese must be the most embarrassing shit I've ever seen. He thought his MCU peak badge was going to allow him to mock an iconic director. Now the whole industry is turning their backs on him. Very interesting and very funny. We'll see what happens to him in the future. But that's a great example of the toxicity within entertainment today, and not just entertainment within the workings of it, of the people working in it, in us, the consumer. We're toxic, they're toxic. How did it get this way? Social media, as much as I love it, and I'm on social media a lot, I'm on Twitter a lot, I'm on Instagram a lot, I'm on YouTube a lot. I love it, but it's damaged us mentally, mentality, and psychologically. It's damaged our mentalities because we don't hold back anymore. Whatever's on our mind, you know, Facebook started it off, didn't it? What's on your mind? You should never tell everyone and all day what's on your mind. There should be a private place in your mind that you don't talk about. I have that place, and that keeps me safe, and that keeps me secure, and that keeps my ill mental health at bay. But when you tell everyone what you think about stuff, about race, about the trans community, about the LGBTQ community, you know, and if that's a toxic opinion, it's only going to end one way. If you hate Zack Snyder and you post it all day, I remember a bloke who absolutely couldn't stand Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. He thought it was totally opposed to what the Batman comic stood for. And he was literally on Facebook tagging me. He hated Christopher Nolan. He would do videos. This guy was insane. I don't know where he is now. If you're watching, I apologise, man, but you were a bit over the edge, weren't you? But passion is good. But when passion goes into deep hatred, I have a saying, hate only hates the hater. Let me say that again. That was stupid, Mick. You didn't say it properly. And it's such a cool phrase. Well, I think so. I would say that, wouldn't I? Anyway, hate only hurts the hater. It can hurt the hated, but most of all, if you have hatred in your heart all day and all night, who do you think that affects? Because hatred just, it's a horrible thing to live with. But love, it's a harder thing to have love in your heart because you have to forgive people. People do a lot of shit. We all do a lot of bad shit to each other throughout the day, especially on social media. Some of the shit I see on there about for example, the stuff going on in the Middle East right now. Some of the nonsense I hear is very difficult not to respond to, but I have to not respond to it so I don't get carried away myself, because I'm a preserver of the peace. I believe in preserving human life, and that's something that's not happening right now. Whatever your opinions are, it's not about left or right. It's about preserving life, protecting people, right? And trying to live in peace. And unfortunately, in terms of the dceu, we never did live in peace. It was a war from day one. First of all, when Man of Steel was released, we were at war with the MCU stands. And then with Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, the ones who loved that movie were very quiet while that movie was systematically attacked, filleted and pilchard. And in the end, Snyder fans exploded. And that's when the fight for the Snyder cut started. And that's when they became really aggressive and shouty and angry, because they had taken a lot of shit. If you keep on kicking someone again and again and again, they're going to rise up like a beast and kick you back. They're going to turn into the Incredible Hulk. They're going to turn into Doomsday, and then you're not going to like what you get. This is what hatred is bred from. And social media creates so much hatred. It's not the fault of their platforms. It's the fault of us and our mentalities. In social media, we have the ability to go on and say a lot of shit. And I'm guilty of that myself. As I get older, and just slightly wiser, because I'm not that wise, I try and hold back, but it is difficult because ultimately social media has takes that you don't agree with. And when you don't agree with a take, it hurts you. It triggers you and you want to respond and you want to put those people right. But no one's right and no one's wrong. It's just about opinions. The one kind of thing that we haven't grappled onto on social media is agreeing to disagree. I think that's the big problem today. And if we found that mentality, I think we would live in a much more peaceful world. Maybe the dceu could have survived if we all agreed to disagree. But Zack Snyder didn't just trigger hardcore DC fans. He triggered hardcore DC artists, DC writers, people at Warner Brothers Pictures themselves who are also huge DC fans, like Jeff Johns and Toby Emmerich. So it became a war of attrition. And everyone took their side. You were either for Zack Snyder's vision or you were against it. I'm a huge hardcore DC fan, but I was for what Zack Snyder was doing. Because I do believe you can create something and do something new with it. Smallville changed a lot of things about the canon of Superman. Lex Luthor in Smallville. Lois Lane in Smallville. People reacted negatively. But in the end, when they saw how good it was and how it actually worked, people left it alone. But in terms of the Snyderverse, Snyder took it even further than Smallville did. Superman was a certain way. The franchise was slightly darker and took some liberties with Batman and Superman. I think Smallville didn't take liberties with Superman, but I think Snyder did for some people. So having Superman kill Zod, which wasn't Snyder's idea, was Goya's idea, by the way, just to remind you of that. And, having Batman, brand people in BVS and kill villains wasn't something that people liked. What comic book artists liked, some comic book artists and writers didn't like that either. So Snyder divided opinion. He's been doing that since Watchmen. That's the truth. And he will continue to do that. Because Zack Snyder will always make the same type of movies, and I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that he has a way of making movies. I like the way the man makes movies because he's an artist. But he isn't for everyone. He's like Marmite. Some people like him, some people don't. But as I say, it's been great bringing you DCEU news every day. This franchise ends soon. It makes me very, very sad, but I celebrate it and I will never forget it and the friends that I've made along the road when I've been reporting it. So to all the people I've met via my DCEU fandom online and doing these videos, I want to say it's been a great joy and a great journey to get to know you, and hopefully we can get to know each other a little more as the future approaches us for a new DC universe.